what happens when a Formula 1 driver crashes, but he can't remember who he is? February 22nd, 2015, McLaren driver Fernando Alonso hits the wall at 10.3. It doesn't look like a big crash, but he doesn't get out. Minutes pass, an ambulance arrives. When Alonso wakes up in hospital, he's not himself. McLaren says one thing, Alonso says another. The data allegedly says nothing. So what really happened on that corner, and why does nobody agree? This is the story of Alonso's mysterious crash. As Alonso posed with his new Ferrari for the 2014 season, there was hope, real hope. The new hybrid power units were predicted to favour manufactured teams, and with Ferrari being a manufacturer, Alonso hoped that this would be the season he won his third world title. But hope wasn't enough. It was Mercedes who would go on to dominate instead. For 5 seasons, Alonso, number 14, had given everything to Ferrari. He'd won races, came close to 2 championships, and once again proved that he was one of the greatest drivers of that generation. But the car was never good enough. Red Bull had dominated before, and now Mercedes had taken over with their advanced power units. Ferrari was always stuck behind, and Alonso was stuck with them. By the middle of 2014, he was done. He couldn't waste any more time. He had to leave. He had to find a team that could give him what he felt he deserved. A car that could win a championship, and not only that, his third world title. With that goal in mind, Alonso terminated his Ferrari contract. 3 world titles is a special number for Alonso. At the age of 3, his father gave him a go-kart painted in the colours of Ayrton Senna's McLaren. Alonso's father was a Senna fan, and his son grew up to be one too. A poster of the Brazilian legend hanging on his bedroom wall. Senna would go on to win 3 world titles in total, and that's a number that Alonso dreamed of matching. Senna won all his titles driving for the legendary McLaren Honda package, a partnership that was reuniting for the 2015 season with massive hype coming from both camps. So when Alonso signed a 3-year deal with McLaren Honda, it felt like destiny. This was a moment his 3-year-old self had been building towards, the chance to match his hero in his hero's car and make his father proud. Both McLaren and Honda promised a lot. Honda claimed they'd bring an engine as good as Mercedes, and McLaren designed an aggressive size 0 car to house it in. As the car was launched, the stakes couldn't be higher. Alonso was in his peak years, arguably a better driver now than in his title-winning seasons of 2005 and 2006. But he had a track record of bad team moves. That Red Bull car that dominated from 2010 to 2013, well, that could have been his. He'd been offered the drive, but he turned it down. The pre-season test would answer everything. Was he closer to that 3rd world title, or about to waste his peak years fighting in the midfield? But little did Alonso know, the answer would be far more terrifying than either option. What was about to happen wouldn't just threaten his championship hopes, it would threaten his entire career. Pre-season testing was split over 3 tests, 4 days in Jerez, then 2 more tests at Barcelona. Testing didn't start too well. Alonso and his teammate Jenson Button managed just 6 laps in the opening 2 days, but they did claw back 67 laps in the second half of the test. That showed that there was a bit of hope, until you looked at the lap times. Their fastest lap was 7 seconds slower than Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari. 7! The team that Alonso had just left. The problems were stacking up. A sensor issue on the first day, a water leak on day 2, and an oil issue on the 4th day. Honda promised an upgrade for the second test in Barcelona. The new engine would be a step up, they declared. Alonso arrived at Barcelona with a quiet sense of hope that the test would go well, especially with his Spanish fans packed in the grandstands ready to cheer him on. But unfortunately, it was more of the same. Yes, they were getting more laps in, but this time it was sensor failures, a water leak, excessive oil, and electrical issues causing interruptions. The team had to run on reduced power just to get some laps in without the engine exploding all over the place. Whispers in the paddock grew louder. This wasn't teething problems, this was the beginning of a crisis. You can't develop a car that isn't running at full speed. Honda brought a new part for the final day of the test, which meant they could crank up the power. One last attempt at a proper test run. That's when everything would go horribly wrong. Alonso's on his strongest run of the day. He's up to 5th place in the timing sheets. He's actually getting some valuable laps in. He crosses the line to start his 21st lap of the day. This is where it all starts. Sebastian Vettel, the driver who replaced him at Ferrari, comes out the pits directly in front of the number 14 McLaren. Vettel runs wide at turn 1. Alonso takes the first 2 corners clean. Vettel rejoins and follows the Spaniard. What Vettel witnesses next, he would later describe as strange. As Alonso exits turn 3, an uphill right-hander, he's travelling around 90 miles per hour when he just turns right into the inside wall at relatively slow speed. The car comes to a halt. It's not a big impact. At test sessions, the red flags come out for any incident, but the speed and impact aren't a concern. Drivers have hit the wall harder and walked away. The marshals arrive. This should be straightforward. The car looks intact, but something's wrong. An ambulance is needed. Every journalist floods towards the medical centre because this doesn't add up. The impact was slow, the car looked fine, so why didn't Alonso just jump out? Alonso's taken to the medical centre. There, he regains consciousness, but is not himself. He's awake, but not acting normally. It's like he's here, but not here. The doctors ask him the standard questions. Who are you? What's the date? Alonso's allegedly speaking Italian. He still thinks he's a Ferrari driver. The doctors decide it's best to sedate him and airlift him to the hospital for further tests. But what caused the crash? Rumours hit the press straight away that Alonso fainted at the wheel. Toxic battery fumes is one theory knocking around. Eric Boulier, McLaren's racing director, arrives at the hospital. He says Alonso was fully conscious throughout, the test came back okay, and he'll stay for 1 night only for observation. Alonso stayed for 3 nights. German and Italian media report that they believe Alonso was in fact electrocuted. A few days later, McLaren boss Ron Dennis holds a press conference for print media. He says Alonso lost consciousness but wasn't concussed, and Alonso is suffering from memory loss. McLaren insists there was nothing wrong with the car. The data shows that everything was normal and that the driver tried to bring the car under control before impact. McLaren also revealed that eyewitnesses at the scene said it was very gusty, basically implying that Alonso lost it himself. But Alonso's version tells a different story. The steering wheel locked to the right in the middle of the corner, directing him into the wall. He remembers everything about the morning and the crash. Yes, he admits he lost consciousness, but it was in the ambulance, not in the car. And he confirms he was in fact, indeed concussed. But is Alonso being 100% honest about when he lost consciousness? Because there are serious questions about his health and his fitness to race. What makes the investigation even more difficult is that there were no cameras recording the crash. The only footage is from trackside CCTV, and even that, the FIA reveals, is not very clear. So McLaren has the data, Alonso has his memory, and Vettel has what he witnessed, but there's no concrete proof of what actually happened in that car. Every driver has to pass a medical test before the start of the season, but whispers spread through the paddock that other drivers aren't comfortable with the idea of racing wheel to wheel with someone who might faint at 200 miles per hour. Alonso now faces a bigger problem than the crash itself. He has to prove that he's safe to race. Alonso's ruled out of the second Barcelona test, and as well as that is ruled out of the opening race of the season in Australia. McLaren releasing the following statement. Fernando's doctors have recommended to him that, following the concussion, for the time being, he should seek to limit as far as is possible any environmental risk factors that could potentially result in suffering another concussion so soon after his previous one, so as to minimise the chances of second impact syndrome. Malaysia arrives. On Thursday, Alonso is the focus of the paddock, with photographers following his every move and journalists wanting to interview him. He passes the pre-season medical with no issues. Then on Friday, after turning in a few laps in free practice 1, everything is pretty much back to normal. The story is forgotten and everyone moves on to seeing who's looking good that weekend. Such is the case with the fast-paced nature of Formula 1. One team that wasn't fast, Alonso's McLaren Honda. The McLarens qualified 17th and 18th on the grid and both retired in the race. Alonso went on to have 3 painful years with McLaren Honda. In 2018, McLaren finally ditched that Honda for Renault engines, but the damage was done. The car was still nowhere near competitive. Alonso never won that 3rd title at McLaren. He never even came close. By the end of 2018, he was done with Formula 1. He needed a break. He needed to step away from the sport. It would be interesting to see if Alonso had a chance to jump in a time machine and go back to the moment he signed that Honda contract. Would he still sign it? Or would he rip that contract up? Would he jump straight in that time machine to come back to the future and leave everything exactly as it is? Because even though that Honda partnership didn't turn out as he'd hoped, even though he didn't win that 3rd World Championship, that contract led to some of the greatest things in his life. He nearly won the Indy 500 at his first attempt, leading the race as a rookie. He won the Daytona 24 Hours. He won Le Mans 24 Hours twice. He became a World Endurance Champion and he drove the Dakar Rally. All of that happened because of that frustration, that drive to prove he was still elite, that hunger for new challenges. As for what really happened that day in Barcelona, we may never know. But Alonso does have an autobiography listed on Amazon, originally scheduled for release when he left Alpine, but then pushed back when he signed for Aston Martin, and then it's been pushed back further again. Maybe when the book finally comes out, he'll reveal the truth. Or maybe some mysteries are just better left unsolved. If you got your own theories, please do leave a comment below. Thank you for watching.